times build character.
This isn't just a show, this is real life. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish.
You gotta see it before anyone else can see it.
Every second, every minute, every day.
We train for life. We got you.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode number 7, the Relentless podcast. I am here with my longtime friend and business partner, Matt Strout. And today we are sitting down with a lively bunch, a fun young crew. We are here with our Relentless coaches. The title of today's episode is Young and Hungry. Because that's what they all are. They're young and hungry. That's why we want them here today to listen to a little bit of their perspective. Some good stories, some good conversation that I reminded them before we came on that we always have inside of the facility. When we're working our floor shifts, when we are, in the back coach's room hanging out, catching up, working on things, whatever it may be. So we have, I'll go around real quick. We have a solid group of our younger core of coaches. There's five of us here today, or 5 of them here today. For those that are watching on YouTube, you can see I'm going to start from my right over here. We have Coach Leah Schmitty. We have Jenna Cornwell, Coach Drew Keller, Evan Van Arsdale, who actually has had an episode on the Relentless Way before, and Brian Schlesinger. Is that good?
Close enough.
That's pretty good. Brian's usually behind the camera helping us out and making everything run smooth so we could get some good stuff out to all of our listeners. On Amazon Music, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, as well as YouTube for those that are watching. We're just always striving to get better and grow our presence, get our voices out there. More importantly, to spark conversation within the community and between everyone's ears. Just get those minds going and continue to grow and do great things. So we're excited today, right, Matt?
Yeah, 100%. We've been waiting a little bit for this one. We've talked about it. We think it's going to be a great opportunity. We, a couple episodes back, brought on the original crew. So the boys that, started this movement in the beginning of time with Paul and myself. So we think it's going to be a really cool perspective now to bring in the young generation, the future of Relentless. And, also just kind of dig into really highlighting the fact of why we can still be connected to people this age group, and I think it comes down to the like-mindedness. So I think it's number one, it's an honor to be surrounded by young, hungry kids of today because I think it's very rare. So we're very proud of that, to be able to draw that into us and then just to feed off each other and grow. They're young and they are hungry, right? Like we're saying, and all that does for us is it motivates us too. Like we're still competitors, we're still in there, and I think it feeds good energy for everyone constantly. So
for sure, couldn't agree more. I'm sure we're all excited here. So I want to start off by kind of going around. We could go in order here from the way I introduce everybody, and just tell us a small little blurb about yourself, something fun, exciting, a fact, or whatever it may be. Just start us off. So, Coach Leah, what do you got for us?
I started Relentless about a year ago. I came in after the gyms finally opened back up from COVID. Looking to do what I love, because I did lose my job that I had at another gym before COVID happened. And, I always just wanted to help people. Fitness was always a passion of mine. I always played sports. So, just being here and doing what I love, it's really important to me. And I've had a good year. I've had a good time.
Beautiful, for sure. Coach Leah came to us a little bit after, as we were coming at it, right? We were coming out of the pandemic a little bit. And remember, like it was yesterday, we had a real good conversation. But actually, funny story about Coach Leah is she was here way before that. She was part of our Ocean County Vocational or Technical Vocational School, the Exercise Science Program class trip. What we dove into on our previous episode back in season 1 with Coach Evan about his upbringing and not only through Relentless but through the vocational program. and Coach Leah came through that same program. So when our doors opened for that class trip, she was definitely a shining star in that group, and she was into it. Always had questions. I think you do 2 years that you came on the trip, or just one?
It was just one. It was my senior year, and I actually got like a little scholarship package from you guys. It was like free boxing and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I looked at when I was like, I should go to Relentless and see if they're looking.
I actually forgot that.
Beautiful.
I forgot about the
right?
class trip. Yeah, I knew. Wow.
So we gave away a scholarship to, which we still do, to the Ocean County Vocational and Technical Program for exercise science through a instructor or a teacher that Matt, had experience with when he was coming up. So great story, way to start us off, and that just shows right there kind of the connection that we are looking to create with the next generation, with anyone that's willing to grow. So Coach Leah voices that perfect. Coach Jenna, probably out of the crew here, the newest member to the team, I would say, right? It feels like years, but tell us a little bit about yourself and where your entry was.
So been here for a couple months now, and this place has changed my perspective of how I go throughout my day, every day, and kind of just growing every day, giving people the ability to grow with me, and transitioning from being a dancer my whole life to finding fitness and mental health and everything. It was a big transition for me, and it really taught me to better myself every day and be able to do that with other people as well and kind of lead them through it. So
for sure, doing a great job so far. That's for sure. Coach Drew, been part of the movement for a while. You could elaborate on that slightly, but where you're at now, what's going on, your experience so far.
Yeah, so I've been part of Relentless for about 9 years, whether it's over or under that, I can't put an actual number on that, but it's pretty much been a part of half my life. Right. But that part of my life has been so meaningful for me, because those were really my developmental years, whether it be training with Paul or just being in the facility, interacting with members, and there's like a reason why I've been here that long, is because there's nothing like it. You can go out and look, but you're always going to be like, you know what, you got to stay here. Like, this is the home base. This is, like, it gets deeply ingrained into you, and it's a great experience with the people, and that's the biggest thing, is the people make this up. So whenever I'm in the facility, it's those daily interactions where it just shows the realness of connecting with people, and there's nothing like it.
For sure. Go Coach Evan.
Yeah, similar to Drew, I've been here for good while now. I think about 7 years. I think that's the biggest thing, like coming in here and basically kind of growing up through here, in a way, through you guys, and building that connection. Something I wanted to talk about too is, I'm sure some of us have heard of it, but like my first interaction coming in here, like the first day, and then go from there, like that was cool because you guys built the connection right off the bat, and I felt so welcomed and so invited that, I kind of never left in a way, but but that was the impact that led me into boxing, into fitness, getting certified out of Votech, and all those things just kind of laid out, the career I knew I wanted to be in.
And it's a good point Drew brought up, and it's pretty accurate for Evan too. Like, it's just about half your lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you think back of as you grow with tons of life ahead of you guys, it's a big chunk. It's a big chunk of your lives, and a big impact that the movement has had on you, but you've had on a lot of people too at a young age, at an early age. That's what you guys are blessed to have in front of you, is the youth and the years ahead to continue to impact people and get it when you're at this point in your life. We kind of got it at this point in our life, Matt. I don't know, maybe.
we thought we did more than we did, actually, but we started rolling with it.
I think the crazy thing too is, like, by the time like me and Evan are 30 years old, that's like 2/3 of our life.
Seriously.
It's like,
Yeah. Yep.
Seriously.
Then we'll be here. We'll be Relentless longer than we've been anything else.
As long as we keep marching on, and which we will, because that's just the type of community we created. Like Drew said, we'll get into more. It'll never leave you, no matter what you're doing in your life. Especially when you're embedded like this crew we have here is, and even our the rest of our coaching staff right now. It's just a solid crew. Coach Brian.
Yeah, so I started my journey about 4 years ago. I came to a boxing class, and then after that, like I loved what you guys were doing, And then I kind of got away from it because I went away to school. So then, I guess it was last year, 2020, when COVID hit.
Yeah, probably a little after Leah came in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I had I was very fortunate enough to officially start my journey as a member. And then I kept coming here. I was coming here about 4 times a week, and I was coming here from Toms River, so a little bit of a commute, about 40 minutes. And then as we kept going, it was around mid-January, early February. I asked Paul if I could do my my summer internship here, and it was so my official start date for that internship was March 21st, and then I had to complete 480 hours by August 6th, which I was able to do about 3 weeks in advance, which I've been very fortunate enough. I put in the time here, and then I officially got brought on as a coach from my internship role at the end of May.
Right.
So since then I feel like me as a person, I've grown a lot, from the time that I started until this point, and I'm very thankful and grateful for the opportunity that you guys gave to me. So thank you for that. And yeah.
Cool. Everybody, great insight, good start. What I really want to do is I want to go around and kind of back to the conversation of like that for some of us has been a large portion of our life so far. But either way, even the coaches that maybe have only been with us for 6 months, a year, or less than the coaches like Drew or Evan, I want to go and talk a little bit about your path to where you're at now first. So like, let's go back a little bit. Let's go back into, we don't have to go crazy far back, but let's think back into our middle school years, going into high school, where our brains were at, where our minds were at. And the reason being is because I want anybody to hear, obviously most importantly, kids that are maybe that are in that position now, going into high school where all this pressure is put on, and this self-inflicted pressure a lot of times, and this thought of what am I going to do, right? And it's funny because like when we look back at the likes of Evan and Drew, the time that they've been in, like the reason they're at where they're at right now is because their mindset was solution based, and it wasn't like, what am I going to do? It's like, what do I want to do? I'm going to make it work no matter what, So, in no specific order, and I'll start with Drew right next to me. Like, where, like for you, let's just start with high school. Drew was at Manalapan High School, local high school, able to train inside the facility with myself, Matt, and our team. Through that journey before he officially became a coach. What did you want to do? Where was your mind at?
So I was always set ever since like middle school to be like a Navy SEAL or something in the military. I know I always wanted to challenge myself to the highest level possible, and just because I was so fascinated by the mind, because I had my own mindset and mental stuff going on, and that's like by challenging yourself and overcoming obstacles is what allow you to grow. So I remember like finding like David Goggins years ago, who's like my absolute like favorite guy I look up to and like want to learn from. So I highly recommend you check him out. He's a little extreme, but I believe everyone has something they can take away from him. But yeah, I always try and like live my lifestyle to the like most highest max potential possible, and always challenge myself and grow. My life motto is be a sponge, absorb everything you can. You never know when you're going to use it. But to actually get back to like my Relentless journey was, I started in middle school when I was with Paul. I want to say 6th or 7th grade, or summer going into my 7th grade. Then I had a back issue that took me out for months. And I came back, started working with Paul, really developing my strength and my core, which is another reason like Relentless is so great. It's just because you're hurt, I can't work out. No, you could always come in. There's always something we can do, improvise, adapt, overcome. I guarantee everyone who comes in has some form of injury, because let's be real, how often are you actually going to be 100%? So we're always going to find a way, whether that just be, hey, you come in, you get activated, you stretch, you walk, you come in, interact with people. That will do numbers for you, and that's what I learned. And then I was kind of in and out throughout my high school years, because my freshman year I had a shoulder surgery. It took me out of working out for 9 months. But I remember coming into the facility when I had my shoulder brace on and I was still recovering, and I was just out of it, and that was like one of the toughest times for me mentally. I walked in, Matt and Paul, said, hey, you're welcome to hang out here. You can just kind of do what you can, talk to people, whatever. And I remember coming into the office with Paul one time. We were just chatting, and I look on the wall, and it's still there to this day. Is this T-shirt, "Hard Times Build Character." I look at that every day when I go into the office, or whenever I'm struggling. I remember that is like the quote that got me through high school, and Relentless was such a big part of that. Because then the following year I had another shoulder surgery, so I was out of working out again. And if you know me, working out is such a big part of my life, and so important to me because there's that routine and consistency. So when I didn't have the ability to work out and train physically, I then had to resort to mental training and preparation, which actually did cause me to grow at an accelerated rate compared to people who didn't go through what I went through. So I didn't just look at these obstacles and these things like, oh, like, why is this happening to me? I may have at first, but then I quickly adjusted, got back up on my feet, surrounded myself by good people in a solid environment like here at Relentless, and that's what really propelled me to where I was today. And again, I said it before, there's nothing like this place and the people we interact with.
Right.
I want to add something real quick. The reason why he was having these injuries is because he is a full speed kid. So he was playing at the highest level of himself. So but I love what you said, how you didn't change who you were, but you changed, we always say mental, physical, emotional strengthening, right? So and I can relate to that a lot. Like coming up, it was all physical for me. Like it was like the physical toughness. And that's where we all are coming up. It's about the shell, like how you look, like all that stuff and your ability to perform and all that. But it forced you to dig deeper and to find the mental and emotional, which I believe is the greatest of them all. I think emotional is the ultimate root. I think the mind controls the whole being, but the emotion is the core of us all as human beings. But I think, like you just said, those moments of adversity, at first life was happening to you, and then you shifted, like Tony always says, the GOAT, life happens for you. And you embraced it, and you opened up these new avenues for yourself, and that is a major role in who you are today and how you can overcome adversities and also give that to others, like we're all talking about. Now it's about the greatest gift of them all is to not just make yourself great. Once you figure that out, you're like, okay, if I dedicate time to myself religiously, I will constantly grow. Perfect, I got it, right? And obviously it takes discipline and dedication and all that. But when you could find a way to enlighten that and watch the light go off into somebody else, that is like the greatest gift. That's what we all love to do. So
yeah,
well said.
The biggest thing I learned, and I think that we talk about all the time, life is about perspective. If something, when it happens to you, you fall back under your preparation. That's one of the things I learned from the military as well. Not that I was actually in the military, but I had a lot of training when I went off to school, and you fall back to your roots. So whenever life is getting tough, you fall back to what you know best and how your body adapted. So here, okay, we have a major thing going on in our life, or it could be something minor, but it just disrupts you. What are you going to do? Are you going to go sit home, lay in your bed, and just think of all these negative thoughts? Or are you going to get up and take action? Fear has two meanings. Forget everything and rise, or no, face everything and rise, or forget everything and run. So which one are you going to be? So I would do my best to get active, whether it be just going out for a walk or coming into the facility, stretch, and interact with members, to get my mind off anything negative, but also to, actually build and work on myself as opposed to just feeling sorry for myself.
Right. Continuing to grow. As I'm sitting here beginning to listen to stories and just the conversation between this crew, I think that's the strongest part about our team right now, not just with the people sitting in this room, with the other coaches and with the members, is that there's so much cohesiveness, and we're getting closer and closer, but we're at the best place we've ever been with surrounding ourselves, like that message that we deliver in those conversations with our clients, and we have been for years. It's happening with our team now, and we took some time to go back and focus on our team a little bit more on growth from the inside. So I want to go to Coach Leah, who really experienced a lot of this from the start, from when Jack, our experience director, first stepped in and started to help us kind of let everything rise to the top a little and brought the best out of us. What was your experience, since you were also newer to the team, that this was fresh? How did that all feel to you, being able to see that full picture that early on?
I came in at a time where you guys were really starting to know where you want to go, like know where you want to take Relentless. So it was cool because it was kind of like full force, but like everybody was in it, and I was just getting to know everyone. Like, you got to remember, we were still going through the pandemic when I started, so like I didn't really know faces. I only saw people's eyes and up, you know, like I was still getting to know names with just looking at them with a mask on and trying to build personal connections with people who were really, you know, while I'm there to kind of train them and be their coach, they're teaching me things about Relentless. I'm getting to like know you guys, so I learned a lot because I came in as like this really shy girl, waiting for people to talk to me first before I went and, you know, talked to them, and stuttered all the time, was really quiet, and now like I've just gotten so comfortable. Everybody's made me feel so comfortable that I can be myself, and like I've grown as a person so much from just even before I started being with you guys. So seeing everything that you guys wanted to become, and now like being a part of it, and like actually seeing the steps that we're taking to rise up is like insane. Like it's super cool.
Yeah. And again, to another venture that we have going on right now, we're, you know, working on a, you know, for, without getting in depth with it, we're working on a small little satellite location, and we've called on Coach Brian and Jenna to kind of really go over there and lead it up and head it up, and represent us in one of the shore towns nearby. And now that experience too, the reason that opportunity is there is because of the strength of our numbers back at home base, right? So we were just doing it yesterday, right? Like to be able to experience that separation and I mean, in reality, right, at the age you're at and at the point you're at in your life, be treated like someone that, you know, someone that matters. I'm not saying like we ever treat anyone not like that, but a lot of that in the world is like, for now, like you're just like that generation, because you're young, like your turn will come, like the reason we push that so much is because we felt that, we went and got it on our own, you know, in a sense. Like a lot of people told us that in a different way, right? How does that feel? I mean, just sitting at Bradley yesterday across the table, I mean, we're nobodies, but just being able to be involved in the growth and what's going on, right? Like, how does that feel to you, Jenna?
You know, definitely at this point in my life, at this age, you know, going through college, you kind of, the best way to describe it is like it's like a herd of sheep. So you're a student, right? You're going to class, everyone's doing everything, you have the professors, they're your leaders, and you kind of get lost in like, I have to follow what everyone else is doing, you know? So having the opportunity with Bradley kind of opened my eyes to, no, like, you don't have to wait until you're 25 to have a great opportunity. You don't have to wait for all these, you know, things to matter for you. You know what I mean? Like how you said. So being able to be a part of that and have that opportunity with you guys and watch this grow, it's amazing because you're impacting it and we're all impacting it. So it's great, honestly. And, you know, a lot of kids our age aren't really open to that. And they just think, no, I have to get a degree. No, I have to follow the herd of sheep and keep going, you know, until my time is ready. But your time can be tomorrow, your time can be in a year, it could be next week, it could be whenever you want it to be. You just have to put in the work and keep the faith in yourself and grow constantly, learn constantly. Like Drew said, be a sponge, absorb everything, you know.
And Jenna is also in school right now too. She's a student at Monmouth University, so she's speaking from both sides, you know. And someone as myself who completed my college education, I just weigh it all as experience, you know. I weigh it all as experience. And I've been through it, so I talk about it in that way because I've been through 4, 5, 5.5 years, whatever it took me. But I've been through my college experience, and it was what it was. But I just take it as an experience, and as that. One thing you said in there was like Matt and I have been talking a lot about empowering people, especially our team. So she touched a lot on that, and that's like one of the most important things right now is to be able to give people strength. You know?
Absolutely.
I feel that, and I think that's what we're doing from the top down. I think there's too much people looking for certain reiteration or justification from somebody to tell them, you know. And I think one of the gifts that we had just inside of us, I think it just comes from like competing, being competitors our whole life. Was like we didn't necessarily wait for someone to be like, hey, it's okay, go do this. Like we just did it and we figured it out, and we learned a lot from that because we messed up and we made mistakes. It didn't know, and really never works out the first time, but we learn from it and we grow. And I think that's something that we want to give. So I think you should never stop learning, right? I think there's so many different forms of learning, but I think too many people are set on like at a settled state, like it should never stop. So like continuing education, there's more free education now than ever. YouTube, all this, so you could do that. You can go to school as well, but like Paul said, these are all experiences. So the reality, one of the quotes one of my gurus always told me was, knowledge is nothing without application. Okay, so I was always surrounded with really educated, I was always the least educated person on paper, but like Drew said, I was a sponge. I used to follow all the most educated people around and ask them questions, and I would retain, I would listen, and then I would practice those things, and then that's just repetition, right? So I think what we're trying to bring to the table is empowering people and giving them a shot and a chance and saying, we believe in you. Like, there was plenty of people coming up that talked down to us and talked to us like, wait, like they would come to show and meet the owners, and they'd walk in and be like, hey, we're here to see the owners. And we're like, hey. And they're like, where's it? And we're like, oh, that's us. And they're like, what? Like, we got talked down to. I'll never forget this one woman's name. I won't say it, but the insurance woman that just came in and just really, really on the phone talked down to us because I was asking so many questions. We're 19 and a half, 20 years old. We're buying our insurance package to run the business. We don't know what to do. It's like a $2,200 or $1,800 investment. It's like our biggest investment besides like rent. We're asking questions. I need to know, like, what does this mean? What do I get? Like, I don't even know anything about insurance, like safety, what? Like, we're just getting after it. So this woman was very aggressive, and like finally I got just like so fed up. I was trying to be so nice, and I said, listen, I'm really sorry, but like we're 19 and we're trying to figure this out, and like I just want to know what I'm investing in. And she completely changed her whole tone, and she almost like started crying on the phone and apologized because her daughter was my age. And in that moment, her perspective shifted, right? Which, this is why I love just being honest and communicating and being transparent with people, because a lot of goodness comes from truth, right? And she said, she had totally backpedaled, redid everything. She goes, where's your guys' place? She was local. She actually came there in person. We made an appointment. She wanted to meet us. She sat with us, apologized 100 times. We signed the papers, and it was beautiful. But it was a learning experience. And I think now, and it's cool because we're only like anywhere between like 9, like maybe 8 to 11 years, I guess, between all of us older. But because of the path we've chose, we have like a lot of experience. We have wisdom. And now that gap, our goal is to give all these experiences out. So now our crew, they don't have to go through any of those silly mistakes. Like, we're trying to expedite where they are and where we are and close that gap and allow them to be free and go have fun and explore your passions and know that it's all based upon hard work, right? We know that. Nothing just is formulated by us talking about it. We put our boots on the ground and we put work in. But when we all support each other and go off that and have belief and trust and loyalty and all these things, it becomes fun. You're like, holy shit, like, life is fun now, right? It's like, wow, this is kind of cool. Like, all the things that maybe I was hearing or thinking or seeing doesn't have to be, right? There's not a right or wrong. It's just there's different ways. So I think our biggest goal was just to kind of open up that light. And I think we're doing it. I think we're figuring it out more and more as we educate, learn, and grow as leaders and take pride in it. But it truly boils down to what you originally said, is empowering people.
Right. That's some powerful shit, man. Like, I see a lot of head nodding going on from Double Jules back there, and like the whole episode is good. We got to fill the bleachers more often. Like, everyone's like, and it's good. It's just good energy, a good group right now. Evan, I wanted to get a little bit into kind of what Mac's talking about here when he talks about closing that gap. Evan has, I like to say, has been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with Matt and I. But more importantly, like where he's at now, like. So if you go back and listen to his episode, it's like 9 or 10 on our first season. He really dives in his story. You hear a lot about his story, which I'm sure he would love to tell more about. But right now, I want, for the people listening, there's a lot of them know you, but for the ones that don't, then to hear like in this day and age, what does your day and your weeks look like now, and compared to like where you never thought you would get or where you were striving to get, right?
Yeah, I think.
How old are you again, real quick?
19.
Cool, go ahead.
I think it's a cool road. Like when you first start, I think I always knew I wanted to be in this industry and be in this field, but I didn't know exactly what it was. You know, like I had an idea of it, but then you get in there, you're like, oh, like things start making more sense. But I think the weeks and days of growth are really like time management and balance.
Just said it in my head. Nice.
Literally,
Time
but,
management. That's the good.
balancing your schedule and filling the gaps for your PTs and stuff like that. So that's a huge thing. I think we all get that and understand that and want to get better. And even though I might have gotten better from last week or yesterday, I'm still trying to get better constantly, because that's a revolving thing. I think that's big. I think it's also like understanding the movement over time. We all get it in some level, but I think every day you build it and you get it more and more. The more you talk about it, the more you're in here. Your hours in the building, all these things build to understanding the movement, getting it more, and being able to preach it out to the other people, and our members. So, I think it's just being able to get more efficient. I started officially like on the books right before COVID hit, so 2020, right in the new year, and that was a big time of. I was doing the kids classes in the
He
kids
was never
program.
off the books, just to let everyone know. He was never
Yeah,
off.
Well, yeah.
He just wasn't getting paid yet.
Right, exactly. But doing like the kids program and all those things in the beginning really built me to where I am now. Like when we shut down, it was a lot of time to think and dwell and how can I get better when we go back in. So we say it a lot, but it's probably one of the best things that ever happened for us,
Yep.
So that made me so much better by just, thinking, collect, reset, you go back out. But, the difference between before and kind of understanding what I was going to do and then really taking it in, thinking about it, and then going back in was a whole different world, understanding it better.
Now he's one of the busiest coaches inside the facility. I don't know whether it just looks like because he's always moving around, running around or not. But I know he's busy.
Yeah.
I know how busy he is. I know how many people he's interacting with. How many people's lives he's changing, making their days better. He has really risen. So being one of the younger coaches here, he has had the longest experience with us, at least, or one of the most longest experience. Moving on to the oldest coach here out of the younger crew, Brian. What a whopping 22 years old.
I'm the old head here.
See some gray hairs.
Yeah.
So this, again, we're going to reiterate, this is a young and hungry crew. Like this is a bunch of young bucks just trying to grow within the Relentless movement, but also the part I love about Brian is the diversity and the things that he has a passion for inside and outside of the facility, still inside the movement, because the Relentless is the way that we operate, and he really he does some great things, and he has a huge role over at a local shore town nightclub that he's a bouncer, but also leads a lot of people over there. How has that played into? It's something we talked about early on. It was actually a big thing when Brian's only has been inside the movement as much as he came here 4 or 5 years ago to take a class within the last 6 months to a year. And one thing that Matt and I talked about when we were bringing him on is how important his experiences and experience in this other place was going to play a role inside of our facility, as well as him just being a big, kind, gentle teddy bear, being the nice guy he is. But how has that played a role for you in your early success inside of our movement?
Oh, it's played a huge role. So I started at Jenkinson's nightclub about 4 years ago, summer of 2018. And my role when I first started there was I was just another body. Like I kind of just put in a spot. I was told to stand there for 6-7 hours, and I pretty much looked for something to happen. So, those nights got pretty boring. And then, my second summer, I had a little bit more of a role because I was one of the only people from my first summer to come back. There was a little situation that went on at work that, not to get into detail, but my original boss left and a new guy took over, which I didn't necessarily get along with, but that's besides the point. And then my third summer, my original boss came back and he kind of gave me a leadership role. So there's a totem pole there. So it's my boss, his direct under, which is a kid who graduated from Burke Memorial in 2015, all-state wrestler, national champion. And then there's one more guy, and then it's me. So my third summer there, last summer, I kind of got put in a situation where during the day, because I was the majority of my hours. So I would work 11 to about midnight every day, 11 a.m. to midnight. And during the day, like, I was the guy. Like, I was in charge. Like, I put people in spots. I was always roaming around. Like, if anybody ever needed anything, like, I got it for them. If anybody needed a break, I would cover their spot. And it got to a point where I knew, like, where everybody was. And let's just say if I was walking around, I saw somebody wasn't there, I knew one of three things happened. They went to the bathroom, they quit, or they went on break, whatever the case was. And
or potentially maybe they were diffusing the situation or dealing with something.
Potentially.
But most of the time you would have known about that already.
Yeah. Only because, like, Jenks is a big place, but not really much room to move around.
Right.
So if something was to happen, I would have seen it. And but yeah, I mean, and then this past summer, my role was the same. Like, I didn't really work as many hours. Like, last year I was working 70 hours a week. But this year I was still putting about 25, 30, depending on, you know, whether it was a holiday weekend or, you know, just a normal week. And, but yeah, I mean, I would say that the role that played into me coming into this movement, it gave me great leadership skills, great communication skills. Patience for sure. That's a big one, actually.
Yeah.
And, yeah, just being able to, because you got to think, on a busy Saturday night, there's 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people. So you kind of have to, you know, be very observant. And I was always keeping my head on swivel because you never know. You know what I mean? Like, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to be coming up behind you. And so I always was able to keep my head on a swivel, and it kind of carried over into my role at Relentless inside the facility. I'm able to keep my head on a swivel in case anybody ever needs anything. Like, I'm there for them, you know what I mean? Like, I could always just tell, like, right off the bat, because usually people just kind of stand there, kind of looking, like, dazedly. They're on their phone for too long. Like, I notice stuff like that. So I always, you know, I'll walk up to them and be like, hey, like, you know, how you doing? Like, you need help? You have any questions? And then, you know, just being able to connect with people on that kind of level. Like, that, I feel like that's my role my other job has carried over into my role at Relentless.
For sure.
I want to add something because Brian came in on a time where we were really stepping up our process at which we were in a phase where we were trying to separate ourselves from the decision makers, which is a very hard thing, but trying to really define what Relentless stands for as a culture and its core values, and then to create a process at which determines if a person is made for the movement. And it was a hard thing because it's a tough thing, right? This is human beings. This is people dealing with people. We're having these conversations, but at the same time, we have dedicated our whole entire lives to this, and it needs to be at the forefront. So it needs to be based upon facts and is what it is, right? There's right, there's wrong, there's that's it, right? It just is what it is. So through a lot of these exercises that we spoke about with Jack and our team and all these things, we formulated like concepts of who we are and what we stand for. And I think when Brian came on, we've made a decision where we were going to be really trying to stay true to these things. And like, if we don't feel it, we know, but we have to be honest and deliver that. And Brian, unfortunately, came in at a time where we were trying to level ourselves up. And at the time, Brian was a lot of great things, but it just didn't feel like he was ready yet. Like, just simple, right? Like, it's just for us to put him in position, and we just felt that mutually, and we loved him as a person. We loved the way he spoke, but just to put him in that position, it just didn't feel right yet. We brought him in and we sat down. It was one of the hardest things we've ever had to do because that was a different role of trying to deliver a message that's very hard, but we have kind hearts, you know? So we sat down and we told this to him, and we said, listen, we have nothing but belief and faith in you, but the way that we think that you can gain some of that stuff is spending more time here. And we said we want to offer you, like, it's a free membership because we do believe in you. We want you to show up. We want you to put your work in every day. If you do this is an opportunity to gain some more trust and belief in all the things in ourselves and our team here. And this is how you're going to earn the spot, basically. And he said, all right, I'll be here tomorrow. And, like, in our heads, you know, we've had conversations and we've put heat on people. We enjoy that and putting a little pressure and seeing what people are made of, you know? And it could have went either way. He could have left and never came back and disappeared. And this kid showed up every single day that he said he was going to. And that is what we're all made of, is we're here to challenge each other, okay? And I think, especially today's day and world, is people have, I think the intent behind it is good, kind of, because they just don't want you to feel anything bad and all this. But in reality, if you really think about it, it's not good, because I like to call it the jungle. The real life in the real world is the jungle, and eventually we all have to unfortunately get released into it, right? So it's just a disservice by not being honest and truthful to people and to prepare them for reality, right? And I think it was such an amazing moment for us, because after we were like shit, that was hard, you know, like who wants to give that information? But I think the important thing was that we laid a solution in, so we delivered something, and then we gave a solution to it, and that in our moment was the kindness with it, right? So it's like, hey, here's how we feel, but if we do this, we really believe that you're going to get to this, and if you get to this, you're with it. And that was a growth moment for us as leaders. It showed us how important it is to do those things, and here he is today. He plays an extremely influential role, like we said, about him and Jenna stepping up, and us believing so wholeheartedly in our culture and our core values now that we feel ready to send people out away from our facility and home, which we have been very careful about for so long, to go represent our name, our brand, our standards. So that's a lot for us, you know. So again, very proud of that, but it's what it comes down to is just, it's a little competition, a little bit of honesty, a little bit of calling people out, you know, and then people rise to it. You know, same thing, I'll even go back real quick to what he just said about his time management. We definitely are tough on him. We hold him to a high standard because he has grown up, but as simple as funny as earlier we told him to turn his alarms off because he has so much responsibility going on, but he takes the competition seriously, and he has like 10 alarms set to do a lot of things in his day. And I love that because he's willing to do what it takes to get the job done. And I can see that for everyone at this circle right now. So
I want to add to that.
Yes.
So I think, like with us all being young, like I think we've all had the experience where like members ask us our age, and when they find it out, they're like, "What?"
Yes, I
'Cause,
love
like,
that.
They all expect
100% across the board.
that
Yes.
we're so much older because of the way that we carry ourselves. And with the kids in our generation, like the 18-year-olds to even I would say 24,
35, 35 I'll say, yeah.
We're so fast-paced because I think we all feel like we need to know what we're doing in our lives. And we don't. Like, not everybody's going to do what we do at 20 years old, at 22 years old. Like, a lot of them are going to go to school and they're still not going to find themselves, and that's okay. Right. But what we do is, like, motivation, and it just shows, like, if you follow what you're passionate about and you just carry yourself the best way you can, and you learn and you do what you can, like, you can achieve and find passion in what you do and never feel like you work a day in your life.
And that brings value, which people see and want to invest in. So
Right.
what we've helped you do and what we've done is show you that if you do everything you just said, because it was very well said, you can create value for yourself. And it's the other way. Like, I think we're taught that we have to search and someone needs to tell us, this is what you're going to do, this is your value, this is what you're worth. And we're kind of saying, look, you can do that. It's not bad to have to, but you can also dedicate yourself. Yeah, you could just find out. It could be anything that you enjoy doing. I always try to tell the young bucks, like, if you didn't have to worry about getting paid for anything, what would you do all day long? Like, what is it? Obviously, it has to be something, like, not just like laying around being silly, right? But like, whatever it actually is, you could dedicate yourself to that craft and become a master craftsman, and people invest in that, in anything to grow from, you know? And I think that's what you're starting to get more than ever. I would say your light has really, like, popped off, and like over the past probably like 3 weeks now, like dramatically, where you just really, really get it and you believe in yourself. We've always believed in you, but the shift has become where you could feel that you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And that's more important than anything else.
100%. That's what it's about.
I would say, like, the coolest part about being a part of, like, this group here, I mean, all of the coaches are involved with this, but it's like we're much more than coworkers. But, like, us especially, is that, like, when we come into the facility, or whether we're outside, you know, talking, hanging out, whatever it may be, we're leveling each other up. Like, we're having some great conversations, we're interacting, or whether we're on the floor actually working, everything that goes on. It's like, we're like a unit, we have a hive mind essentially, but we all have our own unique specialties, and we kind of magnify each other's abilities and learn from that.
Right.
And that also contributes to us leveling up a lot faster, I believe. And it also goes to along with what we were talking about earlier with Matt and Paul. Like I know, like since they've been part of my life for so long, I can go to trust them to talk to them about anything, but also that not only do they have their own personal experiences, but we're in the industry of life, not necessarily fitness, whatever. We're in the industry of life.
Yeah.
So I know when I go to them, not only am I getting their own life experiences or their knowledge, they're taking everything that they've learned from other members, other clients, other friends that they have, or just experiences of their own.
Right.
So like it's a very valuable resource, and I can do the same thing with members and clients, whether they give knowledge to me or I give knowledge to them. It goes both ways, and I think that being in this is what allows us to grow so fast and at an accelerated rate.
For sure. If you want to see why we laughed about 40 seconds ago, you have to go on YouTube and watch and see it. So we're not going to tell you what happened, but you have to go on YouTube.
All right.
Talking about bringing the heat on Brian a little bit when we were through a hiring process, I'm gonna bring a little heat right now. We're gonna go around the circle a little bit, and I want everyone to share when it comes your turn, the most traumatic thing that has happened to you in your life, and how it has helped you to get to where you're at right now. So Jenna, start us off.
So, I definitely struggled with anxiety for a very long time. When I was 12, I had such bad anxiety to the point where I'd go to school and I wouldn't be able to function normally. I'd have to sit in the guidance counselor's office. Couldn't sit in a classroom. I'd start freaking out. So I remember, I'll never forget this. It was like the first day I started freaking out. I went to the guidance counselor and she guided me through it, and she was like, if you ever need to come back to my office. And I was like, okay. So I went there and maybe like the afternoon, and school was like right in the middle of the day, and then I went back to class, and I remember I sat there the whole day and I didn't go back. And she came to my classroom and she was like, I want to talk to you. I'm like, okay. I didn't do anything bad. Let's see what happens. So
Was I supposed to go back?
yeah, was I actually supposed to go back, or was I like? So she was like, you didn't come back to my office once, and when you came, you were freaking out. You couldn't breathe. You couldn't do anything, right? But you sat there in that class and you stayed and you pushed through it. And ever since that day, whenever I would have a panic attack or I face a challenge, I always push through it.
Right.
It'll pass. Whenever I look at it as kind of like a mountain, right? Or like a hill. You're going up constantly. You're going to hit that peak. That could be panic mode. That could be, stress. It's always going to come down. You just have to push through it. Get through it. Push yourself to the, your limits and just
You were so
constantly.
young.
I was
Did you
very
even
young.
know it was anxiety?
What?
Did you even know it was anxiety?
No. So I remember I was sitting in an assembly and I just started like, my heart was racing. I was like, oh my God, am I going to pass out? Like, what's going on? Because you're so young, you don't understand what's going on. So I remember I was like, maybe I should go to the nurse. So I went to the nurse. And she was like, well, like, are you, like, lightheaded? Like, what's going on? Did you eat? And I remember I was like, no, I just don't feel right. I don't feel right. So that's when she called the guidance counselor down. And that's when I went to her office. But I constantly had the support to get me through this challenge. I was on medication, I went to therapists, and that's what also grew my love for mental health, because I understand what it feels like to be that person who's like, is there something wrong with me? When in reality, everyone faces something.
Yeah.
And you understand that it took that one moment for that person to empower you, and how far that has carried you.
Absolutely,
and that carried you a long way. To keep the heat on, let's go Brian. Coach Brian, what do you got for us?
So, I would say this experience really did change my life. So, 2 years ago, I got diagnosed with a corneal disease called keratoconus, which essentially what it is, it's a bulge in my cornea that impairs my vision. So, I have the disease in both my eyes, and so I'm legally blind in my left eye. So, if I'm looking at, let's just say Leah, I can see you clearly right now. But if I cover my right eye, I can still tell that it's you, but you're blurry. So it's a very similar condition to what Matt has, but it's just the corneal aspect of it instead of the retina.
The optic nerve.
Optic nerve,
Yep.
right? So when I remember, not necessarily a funny story, but the way that I found out was a little funny. I was sitting in my dorm room with my roommate, who's also one of my best friends from back home, and we were just sitting down watching TV. He was getting ready to go to practice, and I was just getting ready to go work out, and he wanted to show me something. And I was on my phone, so I kind of looked at the corner of my eye, and I couldn't see it. It was blurry. And I was like, well, that's not good. So then I called my mom, and I was like, hey, like, I think I need glasses. And she was like, oh, okay, you know, when are you coming home next? And I told her, I mean, as soon as possible. Like, I mean, I got to get this checked out. And then I ended up going home that next weekend, and we went to the eye doctor, and I remember sitting on the table, and they were going through the test, and, like, I mean, if you guys have ever been to the eye doctor, like, you know, like, they put the big lens on your face, and you kind of, like, they cover one of your eyes, and then you have the letters on the board. So the first big letter was an E. I couldn't tell that it was an E, because they covered my right eye. Like, I could see the shape of it, but I couldn't tell if it was L and E. Like, I couldn't tell. And then they covered my left eye, and then I was able to see it. And my mom was sitting in the room, and as soon as that happened, she starts crying. And that broke me. I was able to, like, keep calm, like, during the, when I was in the room. But I remember going home that night, and I was sitting in my room by myself, and I remember just, like, why me? Like, why did this have to happen to me? And then I kind of, you know, got hit with a reality check when I went back to school, and I was like, I'm not going to let this define me. Like, yeah, like, am I legally blind? Yeah, but, you know, I still have one good eye, so I might as well use it to my advantage. And, you know, I ended up going back to school, and then I got put on a prescription, and then I ended up going to a specialist where, up in Secaucus, New Jersey, and they sat me down, did the same tests, did a couple different tests, and when it came down to, like, what my options were, I got 3 options. It was a procedure called Keratoconus Crosslinking, which essentially what that surgery is. I had the procedure done. They clamp your eye open for an hour. They numb your eye, and every 2 minutes they put a drop in. Right. I don't know what kind of drops they were, but essentially what the procedure does was it stops the progression of it. So it stops the potential of me going, like, completely blind. And I got it done in my left eye, and so that was one of the options. The other option was a prosthetic contact lens. So I don't remember what the exact description of it was, but the way they made it sound was it was a hard lens on top of a soft lens. And I don't remember if it's I keep it in my eye forever, or if it's like one of those things that you keep have to, like, you know, change. That I'm not 100% sure of. I don't really remember. And then my third option was corneal transplants, which has a 50-50 shot at working. So, you know, the wait list for that at the time was insane. I think it was a couple years. And I didn't really know, you know what I mean? So I asked, I was like, so, like, what are, like, the risks to having that procedure done? And they were like, listen, like, it's a 50-50 shot of it working. If it doesn't work, you have the potential to go completely blind, or you have, you know, the potential to be able to see 20/20 again. And I was like, I mean, I'm a risk taker, but I don't know if I like those odds.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, listen, I mean, you could do the cross-linking. Like, that's the safest bet. It'll stop the progression. And so I ended up getting that procedure done. And, you know, like I said, I was going to let, you know, it define me. So I kind of went about my life, and now I'm here. You know, like, I feel like, you know, it's actually helped me progress as a person. Because now I could talk to people about certain things, like, along those lines. Like, you know, there's a member that we have at the gym that I've connected very well with who also has a disability. He's got a hearing impairment. So, you know, I'm able to, that was actually my first conversation with him. I was able to connect with him on, you know, talking about my eyes, and he was talking about, like, his disability. And, you know, so along those lines, it's helped me really connect on a different level with people. Right. More, I would say, more personal than, you know, certain situations. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Another, you know, that's why I want to go around. I want to highlight, again, not everyone's situations to them are, in life in general, from the people in this room to our members, everyone's situations are traumatic to them or at a certain level, but that also we remind ourselves, as Brian in that moment didn't want it to define him. He knew that other people were dealing with shit too, and that there's a lot of shit that goes on in everyone's life, and his choice was to go forward and not feel sorry for himself.
And I don't think that these things define most people, but I think it definitely does make you who you are.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely has an effect. Whether you make it, it's up to you to make it a good one or a bad one.
Well, and that's the biggest thing. Like, I didn't want it to be like who I was. Like, I didn't want to be known as the blind kid.
Right.
So I kind of, I just wanted to still be Brian. You know what I mean? Still be myself. Still go about my day how I usually would. And yeah, so that's a very good point, though.
And at that young age too, it's so important because it's more impactful then. As we heard from even last episode. It comes out. It'll be from last weekend. It came out last Sunday. You would have heard it with Matt's story, and he talks about at a young age how the difference is in growth in time and years. Coach Joe, what do you got for us?
Well, first before I get into my thing, it also goes to show like we all can kind of get through our stuff too because we have an amazing leaders, but also with Matt, like how his situation, and every day we all sit back and we all kind of watch him go, and it's just like, wow, like. If you didn't actually know him, you wouldn't know. You'd be like, wait, why is he looking at his phone weird? But other than that, you'd have no clue. Like I remember watching him
for a month.
I remember watching him play cornhole the other day, and he's landing it on the board, and it's straight up embarrassing because I can see, and I'm like, I'm calling bullshit, man. Like, no, but no, it just shows how well he can improvise, adapt, and overcome with all this stuff. And so it's like with us, we're like, well, shit, we got to pick up our game here.
No excuses.
But yeah, exactly, literally, like he can get through it, and it just gives us that extra drive every day to go through it. But my story, and I think this allows me to really, it just shows like what Relentless has done for me, is when I was in 5th grade, I had really bad head trauma, and I was forced to basically not be in school for 9 months, not be around people for 9 months. I was basically like Rapunzel locked away in a tower. I was in my room, locked in there basically.
You're quarantined.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I had a strong feeling about lockdowns and these kids being pretty much forced home and not interacting with people. Because I know what that did for me was in 5th grade to 6th grade, I missed 120 something days of school. Because I had really bad concussion and head trauma, I couldn't go outside, I couldn't go exercise or anything like that. I was legitimately locked in my room in the dark, and when you're alone with yourself, you learn a lot about yourself in life because you have a lot of time to think, and not only think, but think about your own thoughts and your feelings, which can be scary sometimes. But again, it's about perspective. It's what you do with that moment and those experiences. And I learned a lot from that. And it wasn't, it's a continuing thing to this day. But being in Relentless, and I noticed the times when I'm not in Relentless or I was away for a while, whether it would be from another injury or just I was busy with sports, I remember that when I was finally pushed back into society, my body rejected it. Like I was getting sick. Like I would go out with my friends, and I would immediately not feel right, not feel in place because my mind would just start racing and going crazy, and I would kind of have to go hide in the bathroom or something like that, and I would have a full-on panic attack and just literally start throwing up or just crying, breaking down. So it was scary at first because I was I was young, I was in 6th grade, but then when I got back into my sports, I started feeling a little bit comfortable, but I couldn't go out into social settings. But the only place I did feel comfortable with was here in Relentless, and especially when I became a coach, that really leveled it up. And because when I come in and I can interact with all the coaches and the clients, that's my medicine. I tried therapy. I had doctors tell me all this stuff, and I was after a couple times, nah, it ain't working. But when I was in Relentless, and now, especially now that I'm a coach and I get to interact with people every day in a place where I have extreme confidence and I feel comfortable around a bunch of people, that really leveled me up to a whole nother level, and every day I continue to level up. So every interaction I have with a member, every interaction I have with a coach, or every time I talk about Relentless outside of Relentless, that's my medicine. That is my cure. And it's not something I don't like to talk about. I am completely fine talking about because I've overcome it, and I want to get this out there to talk to people about it so that they can feel comfortable in our environment, but with just in life, and accepting certain things and growing from it.
I just want to add, and the pretty cool thing about all of us is that we have had those challenges, and what it taught us is to become those leaders for people who may not know who to turn to or what to do, or is there something wrong with me? Again, like that constant feeling like, am I the only one? Why me? You know, it taught us to be those leaders, to take them under our wing and just tell them like, no, everything's gonna be okay. You're gonna get through it. We're here. We're supporting you, and we're gonna get through it. Push through. You know. So
I think
it's cool.
just as importantly is that you've used those challenges.
Right.
You know, everyone has them. Everyone has things that are put in front of them, but it's utilizing the situation. Drew chose to go back and utilize that and put himself in that place of what that experience was for those 120 days that he was, you know, shut down. And then, you know, I've seen him do it within the last year or so, reflect back to that and understand like he's been through shit like that before, and that he could adapt and he could adjust, and that gives him that power again and that confidence to you know, bolt through it.
Right.
Coach Leah, what do you got for us?
Schmitty.
So I think all of like the experiences that have been told so far are really important, but excuse me, I think one of the most common struggles right now in society is body image issues. So I came from a divorced family at a very young age. I think that had a big effect on my stress and my anxiety, but when I was 16, I ended up developing an eating disorder, and at the time I didn't know. I had a boyfriend, I thought I was happy, but then I started to see everybody around me kind of lose their minds over what I was doing to myself. I was constantly getting into arguments with my mom. You know, I don't think she knew how to deal with it. She just wanted me to be healthy, but she didn't know how to go about it. So it was like, you know, I felt crazy. I felt like something was wrong with me. I was constantly crying for like no reason. All I ever did was like work out. I would walk in place, like in class. Like I should be paying attention to school. I'm sitting there walking in place.
Gotta get those steps in.
Gotta get the steps in, literally. But I thought that I was okay. Like I was exceeding in sports, and I'd never had my coach tell me, you know, you need to fall back, you know, which probably should have been something that was said to me. All the girls were like, oh my God, you look so good. But I was a 5'7", 115-pound girl when I should have been, you know, 130, 145. And you could see it in my face. Like I was pale, I looked sick. And I didn't ever go get professional help, but I knew if I wanted to make the people around me happy that I had to change something. So for a couple years, I kind of was back and forth, whether it was anorexia or it was binge eating, to just, I didn't want to do it for myself. I wanted to do it for everybody else. So I still didn't find the love in myself to take care of myself. I just wanted to make sure that nobody else was hurting. So once the pandemic hit, I was kind of over it. Like I kind of was just, I didn't want to like keep pushing myself past my limits. I just wanted to like be happy. So I started weight training, and I was no longer in a relationship with the boyfriend I was with when I had the eating disorder. So I was able to just focus on myself, and I started to find a love for weight training. I think that is a great way to sculpt your body and still allow you to like eat and listen to yourself. And I started to find that those negative thoughts, that negative behavior, that eating disorder behavior slowly started to fade. And by the time I came to you guys, like my mindset was clear, but it was hard. And I think it made me who I was, because that was something that made me want to do what I do today. Like I see it in so many women. Even in the facility, you'll see those behaviors, and those girls don't want to talk about it, but like I think they need to. I think it needs to be something that they can talk to, at least with me, because I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to talk about it with people who haven't struggled with it, and it's just not the same. You build connections over things that you have had common situations with, you know? And I think a lot of people, they still struggle with it even if they're past it, because they haven't found that love for themselves that you really need to like heal, you know what I mean? So that shaped me into the person that I am as a coach, but also into the person that I am just in life. I fight every day. I think we all do.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes it's good to just look back at the struggles that we had and kind of be like, I survived.
It's good to reflect.
The best
Yeah.
part about
100%. It's good to
the
reflect.
best part about Leah's story and her journey so far is that if you followed the way she was describing that, it all ended with focusing on herself. You know what I mean? Growing herself first, being selfish in those moments, which we talk about a lot, and then giving it out, you know, and giving it away. Let's keep the heat going a little bit as we get to the tail end here. Coach Evan, I want you to finish off here with a little bit of strength in your story and a little bit of what you got.
Yeah, so like Leah, my parents were divorced. It was a little later in my life. I was just turned 13. Just kind of I think we all know when you're 12 or 13, it's a weird time anyway of youth and coming up in middle school at that time. But I kind of had like inklings of things that were happening. But basically, I was at that time. It was like a night during the week after school. Sat me down, and it's crazy too because you remember everything, like all the senses, right? Like the facial expressions, the way they were saying things, you remember all of it. So, I'm sitting there, I'm listening, they talk to me, just trying to absorb and I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, what? Like, I'm confused, I don't get it. So, it was there's a lot of emotions, right? There's confusion, there's anger, there's frustration, like why? Why did this happen? But more or less confusion. I think I just didn't understand it at the time, So, we just kind of talked something that was funny. She's like, these Sour Patch kids are pretty good, right? Like, we're just eating candy. Me and my mom were at the table, like, talking, just trying to, go through it. So, and she started crying. I'm like, man, I'm not a crier, but I'm crying now. So I started crying. And it was like this, it was just like it was a moment.
Found out you were a crier? No.
Yeah.
Now I am. But, yeah, so...
And it's okay. It's alright to cry.
Right, and that's
cool.
what I figured that out too.
Yeah.
That's all right, but
And I think a hard thing with being a child of divorce too is a lot of my friends they still had families that were together. So
Yep.
you get jealous in a way and you get upset, but also you want to surround yourself with that because it feels different. Sometimes it's good to be a child of divorce because you don't want to be around parents who fight all the time.
Right.
But when
exactly.
you lived 13 years with a family and now it's split down the middle, you don't know how to handle that. You don't know what to do.
Yeah, it was just
Take sides.
yeah, it's
what do you
just,
do?
it's a weird time for everybody too, because then you have aunts and uncles who are what side
it's
do I
just
pick? Or
everything
friends are
changes.
what side? But yeah, so after that, I stay with my dad, so I live with my dad now, but my mom moved up to Union. And again, I think one thing I want to say too is that it wasn't ever a bad situation. Right. They handled everything very well.
Good.
It was very smooth. It wasn't a super bad situation. It was not a lot of arguing. It was more this is what's happening. You're gonna stay here. That's it. Stay in the same school. Surround yourself. So then, obviously, what do I do? So I tried sports. Tried hanging. Just kind of trying to fill the void. Nothing's clicking. Nothing made sense. Because nothing can really fill it ever. But you can use tools, which, a couple months later, that's when I walked into the building at that time. So it was fresh. It was a fresh wound when I walked in, and that was I got to hit something, got to rock. I bought a bag one time. I was like, oh, I just threw for 3 minutes, and I was like, and that was it. It was 3 minutes, but then I was like, I got to do this really and get good. So that was my biggest motivator to get in the building, but. Yes, so it's a weird time, but it grew me, the scars build, and you move forward, and it's definitely I think it's just more of an emotional thing. You talk about it, you're sitting there in the moment, you listen, but it's more of dwelling and just sitting and overthinking it. So you just got to do something and get the juices going, and things will be okay. And now it's it's normal now,
Hell yeah.
People, right? people get it. People understand it. People it's no. I actually had my cousin wanted to have a dinner with everybody, and I was like, all right. So it's my dad, his girlfriend,
It's gonna happen
my
one day,
mom, her husband. Yeah, and it was just it was cool. I was just this is wild. There's so many people.
Yeah.
There's so many different names, but yeah, seriously, but it's cool. Everybody's very. Again, I'm super thankful that everybody's very cool, and there's not they could talk to each other. They can be in the same room most of the time. So
But that's another common situation. I wrote a paper. There's more people who get a divorce than there is who stay married.
Yeah.
So think about like all those kids who went through what you went through. Like now you can like project that onto them and give them life lessons with
And right, so I wanted to add to that too, is that now going through that, I can relate to people who've been through that, right? We can relate and talk about it, especially for the next generation that is either might be going through it now, right, or has experienced it or had some kind of angst. You know, that's where we can come in and step in and be like, hey, I've been through this. I understand you.
Right.
You know.
That the biggest thing I applaud, not having that experience for myself, but watching friends, family, people go through it, is people like both of your parents who had the ability, to the point we're at now, to be civil and to sit down at some moment, preferably early on than later, and have that conversation with the kid. And everyone just learned that, and we learn that in anything we deal with, not just a divorce, but any type of separation or disconnection in a relationship, from friends to family to loved ones, whatever it may be. And again, Evan goes back to just figuring out and learning what tools he was going to use to get him through this, but also learn from it and not disguise it. And again, to applaud both of Leah and Evan's parents, that's a similar story, but many out there, the ones that do communicate and keep doing those things that need to be done as parents and as leaders, most importantly.
No, you're watching. I didn't speak bad.
I think the cool thing is that while we all have our unique, stories and backgrounds and experiences, is that we all kind of resorted to one thing and we have a commonality with, and that's what makes us so cohesive. Is we all have that passion and love for fitness because we know what it's done for us in our life, and we invested in ourselves. And those of you guys who know me, you guys know I talk about investing a lot. But our greatest asset is ourselves. So when we take the time to actually invest in ourselves, that's going to do far greater for ourselves than investing in any stock. I mean, unless you invested in Apple years ago. But
Next episode is Investing 101.
It just shows that, hey, it's like we can take this, and we all have done it and have different backgrounds with working out and why we did it. But at the end of the day, it's that same ideal reason. And now we get to bring that to others and say, hey, working out isn't just to make yourself look good. In fact, I believe if people were to put more attention to detail of the fact, hey, this can do this for me and my well-being, not just how I look. And it's once you start to realize and fall in love with working out in the process and taking care of yourself and investing in yourself, that's when the real results come. It's not being like, oh, look at myself in the mirror today. Like, no, because it's almost like you're setting yourself up for failure. Right. But if you set up yourself, look how far I've come with my mind. Look how far I've come with controlling my emotions. Look how far I've come with this discipline. And that's when the real results come. It's that 1% better every day. That's really compounding interest right there.
It's that constant hunger.
Ooh, we related it
taking
back.
the negative energy and making it positive.
I like it.
Right.
I think, or I know it all boils down to one thing, and the commonness in this room is it's the Relentless Way, and that's what this podcast is about. We want to thank everybody for, the coaches for being a part of this today and sharing your stories, your perspective, your life journey. I know everyone just did a great job. Everyone has a lot more to say and a lot more to share, which we say to every single guest that's ever on this podcast. We will be back again. We will do this again because I know our minds are going. We also want to thank the listeners out there right now on all of our platforms, our Relentless community, and everyone that's involved. So let's keep doing things the Relentless way. Go crush your day. And remember, if there's one thing we can ask you to do is we just want to give back and give perspective and time here, is go and share on Apple, our Apple podcast, share on Facebook, share on Instagram, promote our Relentless Way podcast and get it out there in hopes and a fact you will help others if you let them put their ears on this. You will spread the energy, you will spread the positivity. So go crush your day. Episode number 7, Young and Hungry.